data scientists and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been really encouraging to see that people have really gone for it by the looks of things.
So we talked about a lot of changes that could happen to the job market and the job skills that AI might have an impact on. So in terms of how job applicants can possibly prepare for these changes, what are some of your thoughts that job applicants could maybe try and adapt to the current trend of AI?
I think so. So there's a couple of things. It's really noticeable in starting this company how many fewer people we need in comparison to previous iterations. And so part of the way that we've enabled that to be is by being very careful about when we're looking for people that they've not necessarily have great knowledge of AI, because we think knowledge of AI as it was 6 months ago will be different than you need in 6 months' time, albeit it's starting to solidify in terms of the grounding. So what we're looking for is people that have demonstrated enormous flexibility of learning, that have been able to, your example of the hieroglyphics, perfect, right? I mean, that's a perfect example where someone has effectively, being able to demonstrate range. And I absolutely agree with you in terms of language being an incredibly important skill. There's a really well-known AI engineer, Andre Kapasi, that says that who knew English was going to be the hottest programming language in the 2020s, right? And I think that's absolutely right. So, for the first time in really looking for technologists, then language has become a primary skill rather than a secondary skill in terms of ability to communicate with colleagues. And that's not just window dressing, it is fundamental. So, engineers that I've worked with in the past that have been incredibly skilled coders that you would definitely put in charge of anything, as we're sometimes seeing coming unstuck in this new world of AI, because you can't program it in the same way, you can't predict necessarily what it's going to do every time. So there's a really different set of skills there. So being able to show both that adaptability of learning and really strength in languages, I think is really important. And I'm talking there about a technical role, but I think already with our customers, we're seeing them start to look for signs that people are going to want to and be able to adopt technologies like ours and others, because therefore that's able to then go and give the business the benefit as well. So in other words, back to my point about not necessarily seeing the usual people quickly adopting this technology. They're looking for can we see the signs that this person has the basic skills to be able to go and manage a smart intern, which is how they recommend they manage our AI. Can they give them the desired outcome, the path to get there, the expectations and so on. And so looking for that in the recruits that they're looking for as well is definitely really important as part of that.
And the flip of that is, how do you write the job description? What are you actually asking for? Right? If it's a classical role that has a classical set of dimensions to it, and you because it's cool to use the letters AI in front of everything, you can fall into the trap of doing that, right? So when you're actually crafting the job role itself and the hiring manager is looking for these people with these skills, I think the question you all need to ask them is, is this, you're doing it because you want to look cool and the company need to look cool because we think we need to attract these people, or is it genuinely applicable to the role that you're in, right? If you're recruiting for chefs, kind of not, right? But if you're recruiting for more white collar type of work where analytics and that capability is required, then yes, I'd actually throw the ball back at you guys and say, right, how are you going to coach hiring managers to actually write a job spec that actually applies? Because to your point, sticking the words AI in front of a product engineer, is that still a product engineer? To what extent does AI impact the role? We don't know. It's still relatively early days. So there's this rush to the gold, which is let's go stick the words AI in front of everything because we think that's what people want to hear. Being honest, the candidate's going to get found out pretty quickly, but you could also get found out pretty quickly if the thing you've written and the thing the candidate's applying for is mismatching, right? So I think there's a corollary to it, which is make sure the thing you're writing is a true reflection of what you want, and where AI can genuinely be embedded, go for it.
Yeah, interesting you say that. My CTO actually wrote the job spec for that role, and it was unbelievably vague. He showed it to me, and I said, "Are you serious? We can't put that out." He was like, "No, that's exactly what I want it to look like. It needs to be that vague." So I was
Before
surprised at
applicants.
like how that's then translated into the content of that spec.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's got some good
Yeah.
applicants. So
I think one of the things that I think we've realised now, as a very early stage startup, I mean, there's just 8 of us, is that we can really double down on hiring for potential. So it's this is all kind of related to what everyone else has said. But for example, we hired a founder's associate recently, and he's a bit of a stem cell, honestly. He's like an undifferentiated stem cell. He can kind of grow into any direction that we need him to, and to an extent we're all a bit like that. And one of the reasons we can be like that is because suddenly we have all of this kind of, you know, AI augmented tooling that we can use at our fingertips that enables us to be almost everything all at once. You know, I mean, on the one hand, on one day he might be coming up with, you know, all of the product walkthroughs that we need for our kind of for our customer support suite, and he'll do it in half an hour because, you know, we've just invested in a tool that, you know, follows us around as we're clicking through the product and then comes up with all the copy and all the screens and joins them all together. Half an hour. You know, on the other hand, he might be writing some marketing copy for us. So it's you know, suddenly we can just hire for people who are going to be smart, resourceful, lots of potential, not necessarily extremely subspecialized.
You sure he's writing the marketing copy though?
No, he's not. That's the point.
Well, it's interesting you guys touched upon the subject of language. Do you guys think that perhaps language might be a necessary requirement in the future to screen any applicant? Maybe give them some
What do you mean by
language
language?
like English language test to test their like vocabulary, their reading comprehension skills. It's obviously it's important to have a good like command of English nowadays.
yeah.
To prompt
Yeah,
the AI to do
100%.
the right things, right?
Okay.
Like if you guys are in charge of hiring, would you add this sort of language component?
Yeah, that's already in our sort of structure when we're hiring. Someone has to have a really good command of English, because obviously what we're specialising in is really fine-tuned emails, and the content that we create needs to sound very human. Having a good understanding of English is pretty essential to be able to even have that visibility on what we're putting out. But again, that's very specific to our business, I guess, maybe less so for other.
Are you finding that there are particular other professions, I'm thinking of journalism and so on, where you're then able to go and take people out of that and put them into what effectively becomes a new profession because they've got really relevant skills to those sorts of things?
Yeah, not yet specifically. I think it's weirdly. I think just to Sam's point as well, like it's just those kind of really smart generalist type people who have been fitting quite well into these roles so far, who can really utilise all of the different tools, who can think for themselves. Obviously, mine's a small company as well, so they need to be a bit like that in general. But potentially long term, I think some real sort of linguists might be the ones who are best.
Yeah. And it's not just kind of generic command of the English or any other language. It's definitely kind of much more around structure of language, and therefore how to make that kind of meaningful, unambiguous and clear. I'm thinking specifically around kind of prompting AI, but therefore that kind of comes through in a number of different ways. So, you know, already lots of people, us including, are finding that if you can find a way of going and giving the AI a set of short, unambiguous commands or instructions or requests, funnily enough, you get much better results than if you're really waffling, kind of long-winded and kind of don't really get to the point very quickly.
Yes.
So there's kind of real kind of, about the impact of the language and how that really works. So, you want short, sharp Ernest Hemingways, you don't want kind of really long, waffly prose.
Yeah, so that we have a new buzzword, prompt engineering.
Yeah.
Right, so
Yeah.
if you want to go and test your IT folks, ask them what prompt engineering means. And I just thought about it. I define it as the science of asking a better question. Or is it the art of asking a better question? Right, because it's in the computer industry, the oldest rule is garbage in equals garbage out. If you ask it a rubbish question, you'll get a rubbish result. If your data set is not correct, you'll get a bad result, right? So prompt engineering is this, and I've not seen it in a job role yet, but I'm pretty certain it's
big in ours. Yeah.
right. So it's the science of asking a better question. You've got this virtual assistant sitting next to you, which is going to do these wonderful things for and with you. How do you prompt it and ask it so that you actually extract the information that you want from it, right? So your language skill point is extremely well made. I think it's very valid. Yeah, prompt engineering. Go test the IT folks, right? You'll soon see who's on the ball and who's not, right?
But it's a better question specifically for LLMs.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true. Yeah. Large
Because
language models.
if you if I ask you a question, what is 3 times 3? Your life depends on it. You're not gonna
14.
Yeah.
But if there's and the reason I mention that, in case I'm sure you guys are all aware, but comments like that at the end of within a prompt will actually generate more accurate results. And so there's a real nuance to asking. Each LLM has its own kind of nuance as well.
We had this ridiculously, in retrospect, naive and fanciful idea that we weren't going to train anyone to use our technology. It's human. Like, you can talk to it, it'll talk back to you, it'll do what you ask it to. You just need to, treat it like a colleague that's sitting next to you, and you'll get what you need out of it. Completely false. So it's a totally different kind of training, and as I said, it's very much more like training someone to be able to go and use or help their colleagues effectively. But it's no less intensive. It's just not click on this menu to then go and do this. It's much more, in a funny way, challenging to that, because it's so kind of free range in terms of where we're getting there. And that kind of gets back to your point about language. Is a lot of that training is around kind of language and therefore how to get the best out of it.
So aside from language skills, what kind of other skills do you think are really important in this AI age nowadays?
I think open-mindedness. So AI is at the moment is as bad as it's ever going to get. And so, when you kind of look at how quickly things have moved on, even in the last 18 months, and it's been kind of longer than that it's been in development, it's so quickly that the people who are open-minded as to the possibilities and what they can do with it are generally optimists around where it's going to get them, and therefore are frankly willing to be patient with, all of our probably slightly rough products at the moment, because they're all brand new, right, are the ones that I think will then be able to then go and kind of have master of it in the future. So that's definitely a kind of a general attitudinal thing that we kind of see in our customers, the people that then really start able to go and